There is an island off the southern tip of Singapore. It has pristine white beaches, a Hollywood-scale theme park, one of the world's most expensive casino resorts, luxury yachts bobbing in a purpose-built marina, and hotels that charge more per night than most Southeast Asians earn in a month. It was engineered, and that word is deliberate, engineered to be the most powerful tourism machine in Asia. Today the cable cars still run, the roller coasters still loop, the casino chandeliers still glitter, but walk the promenades on a weekday. Stand on the beach at Siloso. Look down the corridors of Resorts World and you will feel something that Singapore's government does not like to advertise. Something that its pristine tourism reports quietly paper over. You will feel emptiness. This is the story of Sentosa Island. It is not just a tourism story. It is an economic thriller. It is the story of what happens when a nation bets leisure identity on a single engineered paradise and then watches the world walk away. It is the story of how an island that once pulled in over 20 million visitors a year found itself still fighting years later to claw back numbers it hasn't seen since before a virus changed everything. And it is the story of a deeper, more dangerous force that no government press release will ever fully name. Sentosa is losing not because it isn't good enough. It is losing because the world has changed around it and the price of paradise has become too high. Let us go back to the beginning. In the 1960s, Sentosa was called Pulau Belakang. Translated from Malay, that name means the island of death from behind. It was a British military fortress, cannons, barracks, soldiers, and jungle. When Singapore gained independence in 1965 under Lee Kuan Yew, one of the most urgent questions was what to do with a scrubby military island sitting just 500 meters off the southern coast of a nation that desperately needed an economic identity. The answer arrived, over years of deliberate government planning, as transformation. By 1972, Sentosa had a new name. By the 1980s, it had cable cars and a beach club. By the 1990s, it had golf courses, hotels, and a small amusement park called Fantasy Island. But the vision was always bigger. The question was always, how do you take a former fortress and make it the leisure capital of Asia? The answer arrived in the mid-2000s, and it arrived with a price tag that would make your jaw drop. In 2005, the Singapore government made a decision that would define the nation's tourism ambitions for the next 2 decades. It announced the development of 2 integrated resorts. One would be in Marina Bay. The other would be on Sentosa. These were not ordinary hotels. They were not ordinary casinos. They were total destination ecosystems designed to make you arrive and never want to leave, spending money on every single square foot of the experience. Resorts World Sentosa was developed by the Malaysian gaming giant Henteng Group, and it opened in December 2010. What they built was staggering in scale. Universal Studios Singapore, the first in Southeast Asia, opened within the resort in 2011. There was Adventure Cove Waterpark, the S.E.A. Aquarium, which at the time was the largest aquarium in the world by water volume, a maritime museum, a casino floor larger than 3 football pitches, 6 hotels across every price segment from the budget festive hotel to the ultra-luxury Crockford's Tower. And all of it was connected, branded, lit up, and precisely choreographed. The investment was in the billions of Singapore dollars, and for a while, for a gloriously profitable while, it worked beyond anyone's expectations. The golden decade of Sentosa ran roughly from 2010 to 2019. Singapore's international visitor arrivals grew at a compound annual growth rate of 5.5% during that period. According to the Singapore Tourism Board, in 2019, the city-state welcomed 19.12 million international visitors, the highest number ever recorded since Singapore's independence in 1965. Sentosa alone was pulling in more than 20 million visitors annually when you counted both the island's attractions and Resorts World's integrated resort footfall. Think about what that number means for an island that is just 5 kilometers long and less than 2 kilometers wide. 20 million people flowing through an engineered leisure machine on a patch of reclaimed land in the South China Sea. That is not tourism. That is an industrial operation wearing the costume of a beach holiday. The casino was a money-printing machine. Land-based gaming revenue at Singapore's two integrated resorts, Marina Bay Sands and Resorts World Sentosa, was generating billions of Singapore dollars annually, making the city-state's casino industry one of the most profitable. In Asia, Universal Studios Singapore had queues stretching back into the midday heat. The cable cars were full. The beach clubs were packed on weekends. Property on Sentosa Cove, the exclusive marina district on the eastern end of the island, the only place in Singapore where foreigners are legally permitted to purchase landed residential property, was selling for extraordinary premiums. Sentosa Cove was, in many ways, the most audacious element of the entire project. This was not just a tourist attraction. This was a luxury residential enclave. 5 artificial islands with names like Coral, Paradise, Treasure, Sandy, and Pearl. All built on reclaimed seabed, offering detached bungalows, semi-detached homes, and high-rise condominiums with direct marina access. You could park your yacht, walk up to your villa, and look across the Strait of Singapore toward Indonesia. The pitch was simple and seductive. Live like the global elite in the safest, most efficiently governed city in Asia. For a time, Sentosa Cove attracted exactly the buyers it was designed for. Russian oligarchs, Chinese tech entrepreneurs, Indonesian tycoons. It became a physical symbol of Singapore's extraordinary ambition. Proof that this tiny nation could engineer not just economic success, but an entire aspirational lifestyle out of nothing but willpower, policy, and reclaimed land. And then the machinery began to crack. The cracks did not appear suddenly. They had been forming quietly for years before anyone wanted to admit it. The first fissure was price. Singapore is the most expensive city in Southeast Asia. It frequently ranks among the most expensive cities in the world. A hotel room, a meal at a restaurant with table service, a taxi ride, a family day at Universal Studios, every single touchpoint of a Singapore visit costs more than comparable experiences in Bangkok, Bali, Kuala Lumpur, or Ho Chi Minh City. In 2024, the average international tourist spent approximately 1,184 Singapore dollars during their visit. And that figure reflects not luxury consumption, but the baseline cost of existing in Singapore as a tourist. Hotels, food, transport, and 1 or 2 attraction visits. For visitors from Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, and China, who collectively represent Singapore's largest inbound markets, this cost has become a genuine deterrent. Analysts and industry experts have described the cost of visiting Singapore as prohibitive for much of its traditional regional audience. When a family from Jakarta or Kuala Lumpur can choose between 3 days in Singapore at enormous cost or 10 days in Japan where a currency collapse has made everything a bargain, the calculation starts to tilt. And tilt it has. The second fissure was competition. Regional tourism has undergone a dramatic transformation. Thailand has rebuilt its tourism infrastructure. Bali has evolved into a genuine luxury competitor with world-class resorts and cultural authenticity. Japan has become one of the most compelling destinations in Asia. South Korea has leveraged pop culture. Vietnam and Cambodia now offer rich experiences at lower costs. Singapore sells safety, cleanliness, efficiency, and convenience. But it is now competing in a market where alternatives are richer, cheaper, and more varied than ever before. And then came COVID-19. International arrivals collapsed. Sentosa, built to handle 20 million visitors annually, became a near-empty stage set. Beaches closed. Theme parks shut. Casinos silent. Cable cars swaying with no one inside. Even years later, recovery has been incomplete. Investments continue. New attractions open. Luxury expansions grow. But the core tension remains. Every time Sentosa moves further upmarket, it becomes less accessible to the mass audience that once filled it. And this leads to the central paradox. Singapore is shifting toward high-value tourism. Fewer visitors, higher spending. In revenue terms, it works. But Sentosa is not a boutique destination. It is a massive engineered system that depends on volume. The rides still need maintenance. The hotels still need staff. The infrastructure still needs constant operation. You can reposition a brand, but you cannot shrink fixed costs. And so the island sits in between two worlds. Not empty, but not full. Not failing, but not thriving. The cable cars still run. The chandeliers still glitter. The beaches are still clean. But something has changed. Because in the end, this is the truth at the heart of Sentosa's story. You can engineer a destination, but you cannot engineer desire.